we've been indoctrinated to think that investing equals stocks. But I'm like, what if we looked at ourselves as a stock? How would we treat that stock to appreciate it?
Oh, that's a good frame. It's
right?
Kind of like the health of like a race, $1 million racehorse.
Right. This is one of the biggest money myths out there. And most people hold this so dear and they will defend it all day long. And it's that compound interest is valuable. Like they think compound interest is valuable. But how long does it take for compound interest to work?
A long time.
What's going to happen between now and a long time with AI, with technology, with disruption, with family? And so I think that compound interest slows down the compounding of our growth, because the best way to compound is to do the very thing that you teach. You invest in yourself, grow your life, and when you grow your life, you grow your money, you grow your tribe, and you grow yourself. And when you grow yourself, you actually have a way better life. And yet everybody thinks it's about these numbers in a bank account at the expense of their own self.
Life. Dude, I love listening to you on this topic. Like, you have such a beautiful way of thinking about it that is, I mean, it's just, again, people think financial planning, financial maturity, that is about some kind of like, thesis around investing. And it's like, yes, no, right? It's like investing, but what you call investing, what I call investing are two different things. Because like, to your point, some kid called me up the other day. He's like, I got 50 grand. What should I do with it? I'm like, go invest in yourself. Yeah. They're like, they were expecting me to tell them what stock to buy. I'm like, dude, go be better.
We've been indoctrinated to think that investing equals stocks. But I'm like, what if we looked at ourselves as a stock? How would we treat that stock to appreciate it?
Oh, that's a good frame. It's
right?
Kind of like the health of like a race, $1 million racehorse.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I witness your life and when I learn from you and when I'm inspired by you, like the thing that resonates the most that you say is like, I just work on myself and I bring people along for the ride. Yeah. And the more I grow myself, the more everything grows. And so like when you enter a room, you can feel that energy when you're in a room. I think when I enter a room, people can feel the energy when I enter the room, because it's not just the dollars we have in the bank account, it's the energy that we have as a human being that actually, opens that up. And when I spoke at your Empire event, I walked up on and I said something I had never said before in the moment. The first words out of my mouth was, wealth is a byproduct of a life well lived. Like, that was the first time I just said that. It just kind of hit me on the way up. I was like, most of us think erroneously that wealth is about net worth. But one thing is, people don't even really know a lot about your venture fund. It's not something you talk about a ton, yet they're getting all this value from you. Like, it's not.
But do you want to know, and I remember you sharing that, and it's funny because you're such a master at your craft that I don't know, like, when you say something, if it's the first time you said it or you've like analyzed it, and because I know that you do the work. And when you said that, it was funny because a life well lived creates the energy, to your point, that has people want to work with you. So like, this is what people don't realize is when I think of like my frequency is what I frequently see, or, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? Like, my energy attracts the people that want to co-create with me. Jay-Z can't put out a song without Guru, his producer. He's not sitting there on the boards, right? And a life well lived, where you are an example of expression, expansion, of joy, literally attracts my business partner, Kevin, who runs our holdco, or Todd, who runs my media company. Like, none of those people at that level. And guess what? They're the ones that are creating the wealth, not Dan. Dan is a vehicle.
You're a catalyst.
I'm just out there saying, hey, who wants to build this with me? Do you want to do this? Like, what is your genius? Oh, that's your genius. This is my genius. Could we collaborate together?
Collaboration over competition.
Yeah, there's literally, I'm like, if I can help enough people become rich, and I'm like unapologetic about this. I want you to be rich. You know this. Everybody should be rich. Because I know that on the back end,
because everyone can be rich because of velocity. The more times money exchanges hands,
and I love you and you're in my life. Go be rich so we can be rich together. Let's go race our jets in the sky. I would love to do that. I want to drive around in a supercar. I told the team here, we're going to fill up the whole parking lot. So literally where I just parked, that whole row is going to be in supercars, and I'm going to love on it, and we're going to bring the kids out. It's going to be just a joyous event. because that excites me a lot more of saying, how do I help everybody get rich than me trying to accumulate another dollar?
So think of this context. Most people, if they believe that it's all about the numbers, then what they believe is, first, we've got to reduce our burn rate.
Oh, that's so good.
And eliminate expenses, which gets us into isolation, which destroys collaboration.
Yeah.
And it creates a loneliness and a grind. And this is where I'm annoyed by people that wear the grind as a badge. It's like with buy back your time. I think you say something like, yeah, if you're the one that's working 80 hours a week when it could have been done in 30, then you're kind of a jack. You know, like, that's not a badge of honor. It's a badge of stupidity.
Yeah.
And stop bragging about it because it's not really healthy for you. Well, part of it's because if we believe that it's all about the numbers, we think to raise the number, it's two things: cut back and work harder. And those two things are so hand in glove, because if we cut back, we have to work harder.
Oh, that's good.
And now we're working harder at the expense of lifestyle, which gets people to believe in a concept called retirement. The only reason anyone wants to retire is because they do things they don't want to do on a regular basis, trading time for money. They get burned out, their health suffers, and they think one day, someday, I can finally live the life that you actually could have lived earlier and made more money with, and then didn't retire because you're still in the world of value creation. Because here's the thing, Dan at 44 is more valuable to the world than Dan at 34 because of the wisdom, insights, and your ability to share what you've done with your social media, what you've done with your elite coaching program, what you've done to build SaaS Academy. You've done that, and instead of just building companies that you exited, which were great for the people that were investors and working in that business, you said, I'm going to improve the industry, not just my business. And if you chose to retire after those exits, the entire industry suffers. And this is why it's so selfish and it's not self-aware to think that retirement is a valid concept. It's a concept of the industrial age.
It's selfish.
It's selfish.
I love what you said. Yeah. Dan at 44 is more valuable than Dan at 34. Dan at 64 is going to be crazy valuable. Why would I take myself out of the economy?
Because your mentor gave you good advice at the time, which was take half of it and put it somewhere that you don't really have any control over.
Yeah, I don't want to lose it.
Because you won't lose it. Now, Dan at 44, that doesn't make sense anymore because you become a much better investor.
Totally.
And so now Dan at 44, if you said, well, I'm going to put money in an index fund, I'm going, why? You're funding companies that you don't even care about.
I would never do that.
But you know, that was good advice at the maturity that you're at.
Just don't lose it.
And so sometimes, like, I'm really harsh on RRSPs and qualified plans. Yeah. But the thing is, I don't want people to feel bad if they started there, because I started there too.
Yeah.
I started putting money in there. That's better than nothing,
yeah.
But it's not the best.
No.
And if we get so attached to our ideas, that's why the book's called Sacred Cows, we don't question those ideas to defend our current belief system, and we don't evolve in consciousness and value. And what we do is we stay in the pain to defend our limited actions.
It's interesting, the whole idea of like getting into a rhythm of questioning the beliefs. Like that's a very advanced move.
Well, if you're advanced, one, you can acknowledge and appreciate other people. People that aren't advanced can't give gratitude towards others because they think if they acknowledge someone else, they've somehow diminished themselves. And what I found is, as you know, we're all one. When we can acknowledge greatness in another, it's only because we see it in ourselves.
So good.
And so that's pretty profound. Yeah. The second thing that's really helpful, because I know a lot of people are amazed at how much you put yourself out there, and they're scared to put themselves out there. But I'm always like, anyone that judges me online, it has nothing to do with me and everything to do with them. Mm-hmm. So imagine if that I live my life based upon someone else's scarcity and their limitations, and I try to appease someone that's living from a low level of consciousness, we become the lowest common denominator. And I think it's so critical to challenge the status quo, because most financial gurus go to the lowest common denominator. So let me use an example. This is I'm going to be really clear about this because someone asked me the question 2 days ago. They're like, do you think that Dave Ramsey is out of integrity and incongruent because what he does versus what he teaches is so different? I said, well, he makes $600 million of revenue in his business. He is an intellectual property master with tons of books.
One of the best.
And he owns real estate. Yeah. To me, those are the three biggest assets. Yet he promotes mutual funds that are loaded, right? And budgeting. These two things don't lead to wealth. They just get a train wreck on track. And he's speaking to the lowest common denominator.
People that are in the train wrecks.
The problem is, if we speak to the lowest common denominator as if that's the universal truth, we lose progress. But because people are afraid if you speak to a higher level that people will make mistakes, guess what? Mistakes are the lessons. Mistakes are required for progress, and yet we shield people from mistakes because we think that they can't handle it, which weakens everyone. So I'm pretty opinionated on this whole thing. Like, I think he's probably the best in the world at getting a train wreck on track. But the problem is, if you followed his advice, you would completely live in scarcity of elimination, and no one shrinks away to wealth. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And if you're enjoying these videos, well, there's good news. More where that came from, so go ahead and click through and watch the next video now.